There might be situations or circumstances in life that make you feel like you are at a complete disadvantage compared to others. And that may be true, but I want you to think about, what if the very thing that you feel like is your disadvantage and disqualifies you could actually be an advantage? Let's talk about this. Hey there, my name is Jeff Perry, leadership and career development expert, author of The Intentional Engineer and The Intentional Career Guide to Professional Networking. And we're talking about how can we turn a disadvantage into an advantage. When I think about this, I love the book written by Malcolm Gladwell called David and Goliath. And he uses the David and Goliath story from the Bible as a backdrop to how we face and overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. In that story, he first of all talked about David and Goliath, say, hey, David knew he was never going to beat Goliath hand to hand. And so instead, he never got within swinging distance of a sword or a spear, and he flung a rock at him from a long distance. And that was something that David had practiced for a long time, for much of his life, because he was a shepherd and he had to protect the sheep from other animals and predators. And he used the sling to be able to do that. And he never gave Goliath a chance because Goliath never got close enough to even swing at David. That was a huge advantage that David would never have had an even fighting chance at all to be able to take down Goliath's sword to sword, hand to hand, right? Because Goliath was huge and David was small, right? Think about another story in that book where Malcolm Gladwell talks about a girls' basketball team, mostly comprised of girls who had never played or very little played basketball before. It was like a middle school team. And so what the coaches did, they took an unconventional approach. They knew that they would never be able to beat many of these other teams who had a lot more experienced players playing the traditional style of basketball. So what they did is in their practices, instead of learning plays and practicing shooting, they ran and they did a whole lot of conditioning. And they learned how to play full court press defense, which means that instead of just after you score a basket or the other team gets a rebound, you go to the other side and wait to play defense over there. You play defense across the entire court. And their conditioning and their fitness level was higher because they ran a lot during practice. And most of the other teams, even if they had experienced players, weren't experienced in breaking a press. Now, what that meant is they got a lot of steals and they got a lot of layups. And they got all the way to the championship game. This team with a bunch of inexperienced girls, they got all the way to the championship game. And the only reason they lost that is because the refs blew the whistle and were calling a lot of fouls and they had to back off in their full court press defense, right? But they never would have won had they played the game the traditional way. They had to play the game differently. And so I want you to think about in your own circumstances, in your life, in your career. We've got a client right now who he's got decades of experience, but he never actually got a formal engineering degree. And for some strange reason, companies still care about that. But the guy has 50 plus patents to his name. He's got oodles of evidence that shows that he can solve massive engineering problems of every variety, right? But he's got this disadvantage that if he throws his resume into an ATS system, they're probably looking to validate that he has an engineering degree and he doesn't show that, so he gets struck down really quick, okay? So he has to play the game differently. He has to take an approach that is telling his stories and showcasing his value, his experience in different ways, via LinkedIn, via outreach with a portfolio and other things that other people might not do. But if he plays the game differently, he can actually use that as a great advantage. Plus, he's got an advantage of a bunch of experience to showcase what he can really do and find an opportunity with the right company that's going to see the value that he brings and want to utilize that. So I want you to just think, what's a seeming disadvantage right now that can actually force you into thinking a different way, to taking a different path than the traditional one? Because I'll tell you what, if you're trying to make a job transition, probably the spray and pray approach of just applying to a bunch of jobs and hoping to hear back, it rarely works. You got to do things differently than other people if you want different results. So how can you play the game differently, right? I'll just leave you with that. And I'll tell you, this is what I do, is I help people play the game differently to get completely advantaged results, even in disadvantaged situations. And if I can help you, I'd love to do that. Please reach out to me, jeff@jeff-perry.com, and we can talk about what that would look like to work together in my Engineering Career Accelerator or other programs that I have for you. Please reach out and let's connect. And make sure to like and subscribe this video so you can make sure to be alerted of future content that might be helpful for you in your career and leadership. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.